We still have some time, so this is the best time for the media or any question. Please come outside and press order. Also, like during the house programs, we suggest that please turn down your cell phones, put it on silent mode. And if you need to go to the restroom, for those who are not familiar with the area, when you walk straight to the door, you can turn left and turn left again. You can see next to the elevator there's a restroom right there. And when you walk out, walk in, leave it respectfully, close the door. We can keep room like people can listen. Thank you.
Không ứng.
Xuống đó anh kiếm là không có luôn.
Hả?
Cầm vô đó của trường không bỏ đó.
Xuống tới chỗ security đó không có.
Anh cầm vô đó, anh đưa cho anh cột.
Nếu mà thôi
Ủa cái này của ai, của em hả?
Không. Nếu anh thôi giờ nó format được sao?
Hả?
Thôi vào không còn với nó được. Như là sao?
Mấy hôm qua mẹ họp hay
Làm
mẹ
được rồi.
cãi nhau lung tung đấy về cái vụ media. Cái này mẹ cũng không được cho làm trong này, chỉ đang mà kia làm. Bây giờ cuối cùng mày
Cùng
cũng
đường
vậy
cũng
thôi.
làm bên kia rồi. Không ai nói gì đâu.
Không phải tại vì thiệt ra nó có cái rule của nó. Mấy người này nói vậy thôi chẳng lắm.
Em không biết, tại vì ban tổ chức chỉ sao thì em làm vậy thôi chứ em đâu có quyền gì.
Không có gì. Thì bình thường thôi. Đây coi, chị đi đến chút lên đây coi, ngồi đây. Okay, lượt xếp anh.
Oh, right.
Trung.
Anh ơi, lên chỗ này, trên này để cho anh lên. Mình ngồi đây đặt mặt khăn lên. Dập.
Cái này reserve mà bốn hàng này reserve cho những người yeah. Reserve cho cái mấy người ông thượng nghị sĩ rồi mấy người ở đây xong rồi người ta reserve hết rồi. Chỉ mấy người bình thường mình ngồi đây hết. I don't care who you are. Bên trong staff mà đây staff. Thiệt ra thì nó đúng là không biết tại vì cái này là
Every single chair has the same, like, number. So then you know, like, I mean, to increase the certainty that, like, for me, I'm pretty, like, an open book, you know, how I approach stuff. Sometimes it's just, like, just reminders of where I come from, and things like that. And also to always treat people with respect. I know. I can be eating. Who's Ben?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
That's a good question.
I know, right? Well, he's with his dad though. Like,
So how you know Ben?
oh, because me and him like are like I think the only young people who go to the parish, our parish,
Yeah.
church every day, right? We try to go every day. Like my best friend in high school, she quit. She tries to go.
But who is she? Wow.
Mình ngồi trong này.
Thằng này lớn như mày nữa hả?
Muốn ngồi đây. Ngồi đây đi chút rồi quay đi con. Lấy thêm cái nữa, lấy thêm cái nữa đổ kiểu ra bên này xíu xíu này. Rồi. Có.
Ladies and gentlemen, our program will begin in 4 minutes. Please take your seat. We will begin in 4 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will start our program shortly. Once more time, I would like to invite all of the people outside, please come in. And once the program starts, we will close the door. And I would like to ask those on the flag ceremony, get ready, come up on the stage. Thank you. One more time, next ceremony is on the stage. And also one more time, I would like to ask everybody during the program please to put down your seat on the side, please. If you need to get out, please walk quietly. Let somebody open the door for you. The rest of one more time, when you walk outside, you turn left and left again. You can see the rest of the length of the elevator. Thank you. And now, for the I would like to invite Miss Linh Nguyên. She will be co-host with me for this today program.
Thank you for all your support over the years, and we appreciate every unwavering support that you've given us. Welcome to the 30th Annual Vietnam Human Rights Day, May 11th. Please welcome prominent artist Mr. Lan Hika for the opening ceremony.
So, dear our distinguished guests, we will begin our today with the flag ceremony. First is the flag and the national anthem of the United States, followed by the flag and national anthem of the Republic of Vietnam, then followed by the silence. So we respectfully asking all the guests today to stand up flag ceremony. I would like to invite And today, singing the national anthem of the United States and the Republic of Vietnam, I would like to invite Miss Jennifer.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. And the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
National anthems of the Republic of Vietnam.
Không sân ơi, quốc gia đến địa giải phóng, để lòng của đi đi xanh những gì em sống, vì tương lai của dân cùng sống ta có biết làm sao chống sông từ nay đến lúc bên cho thành công trên đường sao cùng đưa lên ao đảo đảo nói sông lúc liền phải cần giải nguy người công dân quân vững bền tâm trí cùng trang quyết chiến đấu làm cho khắp nơi phải tin người Việt Nam cho đến muôn công dân ơi mang tiếng thân dưới cờ công dân ơi mang làm cho khói bừng thoát khởi rồi pha phê vàng người sống xứng danh Việt Nam sống làm hầu.
Dear distinguished guests, please join us for a moment of silence. For those who sacrifice themselves in the work of building and defending our countries, in the work of building, developing, and fighting for a free and human social foundation, for the hundreds of millions of victims of the communist regime in Vietnam and other countries around the world. Today, we send a strong message to the world, especially to Vietnam. We, the people who love freedom and democracy, stand united as a common community celebrating human rights and democracy in the land of the free and the home of the brave. We will always strive to fight for those noble values. A moment of silence. is our distinguished
một phút bằng điệu để ghi nhớ công đức tiền nhân, các anh hùng dân tộc, vị quốc vong thân. Phút bằng điệu.
The ceremonies of the flag ceremony and the moment of silence and the please be seated. Thank you very much. Thank you. So I would like to introduce back our Caucus members.
34 years ago, Dr. Quế led the Caucus in movement, also known as Rallying for Democracy. The movement inspired the bicameral support for the designation for Vietnam Human Rights Day, May 11th. Today, we commemorate the 30th anniversary. We continue advocating for human rights in honor of two great men, two brothers, Dr. Nguyen Nguyen and Dr. Quế. The program consists of welcoming remarks from May 11th Committee, keynote from Ms. Usra Zaya, U.S. State Department, remarks from dignitaries and prominent community leaders for human rights. We will also have panelists regarding the role of youth in democracy and human rights. We will introduce Mr. Hung Phan, Chairman of the Board of Directors of the Vietnam Human Rights Day, May 11th. Please welcome Mr. Phan.
Dear the Honorable Under Secretary Usra Zaya, the Honorable Members of U.S. Congress, and dear all distinguished guests, it is with great pleasure on behalf of the Organization Committee to welcome all of you here today. We gather today to recognize the 30th commemoration of the Vietnam Human Rights Day. Although we have made great progress in effort, there's still a dire need to fight for the basic rights such as freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and freedom of expression for all Vietnamese people. Before continuing with our program, we'd like to especially thank the many people that make this event possible. First, we'd like to thank Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick for Pennsylvania, who is our sponsor and will be here shortly to address her. Without his great support, we will not be able to organize such a big event as this, and we owe him and his staff a great deal. Please give a big hand to thank the great Congressman from Pennsylvania. Secondly, we'd like to thank Undersecretary Usra Zaya, who oversees the Department of Democracy, Human Rights, and Labor. She's here to presenting the State Department and is our keynote speaker. Finally, we would like to thank and appreciate the distinguished members of Congress who have worked diligently to keep human rights at the forefront of their agendas. In addition, our special thanks to the leaders who represent U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom, U.S. Agent Global Media, Victim of Communism, PEN America, International Institute for Democracy and Electoral Assistance, and the many other valued organizations who are joined for this event. Also, we want to especially recognize the delegates from Vietnam, Hong Kong, Cambodia, Myanmar, and Tibet. We are truly grateful to all those who have prayed and support this cause, whether they are local or international. We strongly believe that by joining forces, our voice can be heard better, and together can achieve our noble goals. That is freedom and democracy for Asia, The President now showed the Hanoi government our solidarity and determination. Finally, I'd like to thank all the members of our 16 organizations that have worked consistently behind the scenes to make this day possible. We truly appreciate your commitment to be here today. We hope that you enjoy the event. Thank you very much. And the next thing is my job to introduce the keynote speaker. Undersecretary Ura Zeya was confirmed and sworn in Undersecretary for Civilian Security, Democracy, and Human Rights on July 14, 2021. On this role, she leads global diplomatic efforts to strengthen democracy, advance universal human rights, support refugee and humanitarian relief, promote rule of law and counter-narcotic cooperation, fight corruption and intolerance, prevent armed conflict, and eliminate human trafficking. And she's also special coordinator of Tibetan Institute, for which she led U.S. effort to support the human rights and meet the humanitarian needs for the Tibetan people and preserve their unique cultural, religious, and linguistic identity. The Secretary Zeya brings to these roles over 3 decades of diplomatic and leadership achievement and intersection of international peace, security, and human rights. She is currently a commissioner of the Congressional Executive Committee on China and ex-official member of the U.S. Institute of Peaceable. Please give applause. Welcome to Undersecretary Ura Zeya.
Good morning, and thank you for that warm introduction. I'd first like to thank the Vietnam Human Rights Day Advisory Board for organizing today's events. I'd like to thank our distinguished moderator and speakers for providing their insights on this vitally important issue. Of course, I want to thank Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick for sponsoring this year's commemoration. Thank you all. Distinguished senators and members of Congress, friends and colleagues, it is an honor to be with you all today to mark the 30th commemoration of Vietnam Human Rights Day. On this anniversary, we have an opportunity to reflect on the decades of work and tireless efforts of courageous champions, including many in attendance today, to advance human rights in Vietnam. I want to salute Dr. Kun Nguyen and Dr. Nguyen Dan Quay in particular, and the countless other human rights defenders, ethnic minority and religious freedom advocates, and members of civil society who for decades have called upon the government of Vietnam to promote and protect human rights and fundamental freedoms. I commend you for your unwavering leadership and dedication to these critically important issues. Thank you all. The United States is committed to a world in which human rights are protected, human rights defenders are celebrated, and those who commit human rights abuses are held accountable. Under the Biden-Harris administration, the United States has pursued a foreign policy that unites our democratic values with our diplomatic leadership and is centered on the defense of democracy and protection of human rights. As you know, this past year was significant for the U.S.-Vietnam relationship. In September of 2023, President Biden and Secretary Blinken visited Vietnam and announced an upgrade in our bilateral relationship to a comprehensive strategic partnership. And while we seek to deepen our economic partnership and our people-to-people ties with Vietnam so we can work together to address global challenges, this engagement remains guided by democratic values and the protection of human rights. In fact, one of the core pillars of our comprehensive strategic partnership is promoting and protecting human rights. President Biden directly underscored during his visit last September the universality of human rights and the importance of our bilateral cooperation to advance human rights and fundamental freedoms, including freedoms of expression, association, peaceful assembly, and religion or belief at home and abroad. Secretary Blinken and our most senior leaders continue to reiterate this message, and our long-standing bilateral human rights dialogue is centered on engaging in meaningful dialogue that
Che camera.
in that regard, the United States continues to have serious
Bao nhiêu người đằng
concerns
sau
about
mà nó
state
đứng
human rights in Vietnam. The Department of State's recently released Human Rights Report on Vietnam documents continued crackdown by authorities on human rights and fundamental freedoms, particularly freedom of expression. We continue to raise our concerns directly with the Vietnamese government, calling for reforms and integrating human rights across our bilateral relationship. So allow me to speak to three serious human rights concerns in Vietnam that we are particularly focused on. First, we are deeply concerned that Vietnam continues to impose severe limitations on freedom of expression, association, peaceful assembly, and freedom of religion or belief. This includes Vietnam's use of vague national security provisions to criminalize the exercise of fundamental freedoms. This, in turn, has led to a troubling number of cases of harassment, unjust arrests, and harsh prison sentences targeting human rights defenders, independent journalists, ethnic, minority, and religious freedom advocates, and everyday people who are peacefully expressing their views. We remain deeply concerned regarding the welfare of unjustly detained political prisoners like Pham Duan Chang, a journalist who remains in prison despite her reported deteriorating health. The work of Chang and other independent journalists is essential to building a prosperous and resilient society. They make valuable contributions to accountability and transparency and give local communities a voice in addressing challenges like environmental pollution, corruption, and access to public resources. Chang's detention is not an isolated incident. Human rights organizations estimate that there are more than 180 unjustly detained political prisoners in Vietnam. So we continue to call on the government of Vietnam to release Chang and all other unjustly detained prisoners. We are also concerned that the government of Vietnam maintains significant control over religious practices, and that Vietnam's laws include vague provisions to restrict the exercise of religious freedom or belief in the stated interest of national security and social unity. Religious actors, particularly those representing groups without government recognition or certificates of registration, continue to report incidents of government harassment, including physical assaults, arrests, travel restrictions, and property seizure and destruction. As many of you know, Secretary Blinken redesignated Vietnam as a special watch list country for engaging in or tolerating severe violations of religious freedom under the International Religious Freedom Act in December 2023. To avoid another special watch list designation, Vietnam must take significant and lasting actions to improve the status of religious freedom for all. The United States will continue to press Vietnam on this issue and urge respect for the rule of law and the rights of individuals to exercise freedoms of expression, association, peaceful assembly, and religion or belief. Second, we remain concerned that civic space and the ability for non-governmental organizations to operate are highly constrained, both in law and practice. NGOs play a critical role in supporting government efforts to address pressing social problems, filling gaps in service provision, and promoting civic engagement 2021. These convictions have left many other NGO leaders afraid that they might be targeted next. The trials of Wang Ti-min Hong, Dang Ding Bak, and other environmental defenders raise serious concerns about respect for fair trial guarantees and other human rights. Having NGOs at the table and operating without fear of retaliation or retribution is not only a commitment Vietnam made under the Just Energy Transition Partnership, but it is a pledge that both our countries have made as members of the UN Human Rights Councils. So we will continue to call on Vietnam to create an enabling environment for NGOs to operate and contribute to their nation's development, including by releasing unjustly detained NGO leaders. Thirdly, I am deeply troubled by Vietnam authorities' efforts to reach beyond their borders, to coerce, harass, intimidate, surveil, and censor human rights defenders, independent journalists, and others for exercising their rights. Such actions undermine Vietnam's commitment to a rules-based international order and respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms. The alleged forced return of Vietnamese blogger and political refugee Duong Van Thai, who was reportedly abducted by Vietnamese authorities in April 2023 while living in exile in Thailand, is but one of the most recent examples of transnational repression reported. I know that many of you here also had harrowing experiences with transnational repression and continue to contend with the far-reaching negative consequences of that on your lives and also those of your colleagues of the victims. I assure you that the United States will continue to push back against governments that arbitrarily and unlawfully surveil, threaten, and attack individuals, both at home and abroad, who are exercising their universal human rights. The United States stands with and supports those targeted by acts of transnational repression, and we are committed to promoting accountability for its perpetrators. Finally, as we continue to press Vietnam to address these serious human rights concerns, we're also actively encouraging the government to deepen progress that we've seen in recent years to improve the protection of women, persons with disabilities, and LGBTQI+ persons, as well as strengthen labor rights. As a member of the United Nations, we call upon Vietnam, as we do all countries, to uphold its obligations on human rights and to actively work to promote and protect these rights at home and abroad. I want to close again by drawing attention to the long-standing dedication and bravery of Vietnam's human rights defenders and civil society leaders for their continued work to advance human rights and fundamental freedoms, despite significant risks and threats they face. What gives me hope for an improved state of human rights is the resilience, perseverance, and the ongoing leadership of those in this room and other members of civil society, both inside and outside Vietnam and among the diaspora. Your resolve is an inspiration, and the United States will always stand behind those who work towards a more just, free, and equitable Vietnam. Thank you.
On behalf of our organization and the Vietnamese people around the world, we would like to thank you very much for you. And as you mentioned, the United States stand behind our fighting for freedom. And yes, the freedom of Vietnam, democracy for Vietnam and for people around the world have to depend on the people of Vietnam or on other countries. So today we united to have the support of those inside to fight, to keep on fighting. And overseas, not just in the United States, we can see from Canada, Australia, Europe, everywhere there's a Vietnamese provide us a path of how this organization been through for the last 30 years. And we see many familiar faces here with us for the past 30 years. And we deeply appreciate your support. But once again, the fighting is on our way. Thank you very much.
Đồng bào
This touched my heart when I look back those pictures. You can see from those slides, some face now not with us anymore, but some are still here, and the fight is still going on. So the next person I would like to introduce is one of our honor guests, the Honorable Congresswoman Judy Chu. She represents the 28th Congressional District, which include Pasadena and the West San Gabriel Valley of the Southern California. President Chu currently serves on the powerful House Ways and Means Committee and Small Business Committee. Please put your hands together to welcome Judy Chu.
Hello, I'm Congressmember Judy Chu from California's 28th District, and I am chair of the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus, or what we call. And I'm honored to be here to take part in the 30th anniversary of Vietnam Human Rights Day. Just 2 weeks ago, we also marked the 49th anniversary of the fall of Saigon on Black April, which I helped to commemorate with the Vietnamese American community in Southern California. On April 30th, 1975, the Republic of Vietnam was overthrown by communist forces, marking the end of the Vietnam War, which claimed the lives of as many as 250,000 South Vietnamese soldiers, 60,000 American soldiers, and countless innocent civilians throughout Southeast Asia. Since that time, hundreds of thousands of Vietnamese have resettled in the United States and now comprise the sixth largest immigrant group in the country. Many of them are refugees who resettled in this country because their families had allied with the United States or were forced to flee violence and genocide during the war. They have overcome these challenges and built vibrant communities across the country that contribute to the rich diversity of our nation. And they continue to show fierce commitment to the ideals of freedom and democracy as they speak out against human rights abuses in Vietnam and throughout the world. And so as chair of the Congressional Asian Pacific Caucus, I'm honored to pay tribute to these incredible communities here in the U.S. during May, which is AA, Asian American Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Heritage Month. I'm also proud to sponsor the Southeast Asian Deportation Relief Act of 2023, legislation that I've led for years that would end deportations of Southeast Asian American refugees, including many Vietnamese Americans, and establish a pathway to return to the U.S. for the more than 2,000 refugees who have already been deported and forced to return to a country where they may not even know language and are vulnerable to human and civil rights abuses. In fact, that is exactly why the Vietnamese American community has advocated for decades to address the unacceptable human rights conditions in Vietnam. From accounts of forced labor, extrajudicial killings, crackdowns on free speech, and restrictions on workers' freedom of association, Vietnamese people continue to suffer today under their authoritarian government. But I'm so honored to stand here in the U.S. Capitol and recognize the advocacy and leadership of the Vietnamese American community, which has tirelessly fought to address these human rights conditions and use their voice to push Congress and the executive branch to do more to advocate for human rights in Vietnam. So thank you for inviting me here today. I'm so thankful for this opportunity to commemorate Vietnam Human Rights Day here in the halls of Congress and to celebrate the Vietnamese American community. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman. The next one, to me and to many people in this organization, this wonderful, I would say, lady is still young to me, not strange to us. I would like to introduce the Honorable Congresswoman Leslie Moore. Lovely. She's a businesswoman and politician. In 1992, she became the first woman elected to the United States House of Representatives from the Commonwealth of Virginia. Congresswoman Byrne was the sponsor of resolution designated May 11, 1994 as Vietnam Human Rights Day. Once again, thank you.
Xin chào. I'm so happy that after 30 years I've learned 2 words in Vietnamese. And I'm also happy to watch myself grow younger on these slides, getting younger and younger. It has indeed been 30 years, although we started this in Virginia in 34 years ago. We were the first state in the United States to have recognized a Vietnam Human Rights Day. And that was Delegate Alan Mayer, who has since passed away. But I was a co-sponsor of that bill. So I've been at this for 34 years. And then when I went to Congress, Dr. Nguyen came to my office and he said, "You were so good the first time, let's do it again." So we reintroduced it, but at that time in Congress, to get a memorial or any kind of resolution, you had to get 218 signatures before they would put it on the floor. So we scurried around and we had, I think maybe 212, something like that. We had 1 more week to go. And Dr. Nguyen came to my office and he said, "How can I help?" I want you to focus on Dr. Nguyen, because without him, there would be no Vietnam Human Rights Day to celebrate. He has been the moving force behind this in making sure that the progression keeps moving. You know, in 30 years, I've seen a lot of promises from a lot of governments. And I would say this, that authoritarian governments do not give away power. We have to keep the pressure on every single day. That's what I've learned. Now, the first time I came before and spoke to you, I said I would be with you until we got Vietnam human rights. I'm old. We've got to move this along. I am now 77 years old. Pressure on the governments, not only Vietnam, but in Cambodia, in Laos, in Myanmar, in China. And now what we're seeing is some of our Western friends, like Hungary, like India, are starting to slide away from the goal of human rights. This is an international problem. And I've, over the years, been a student of history, and what I've kind of come to realize is that authoritarian governments, be they communist or fascist, are afraid of their own people. That's why they do the things they do. They are afraid of their people. They don't want them to speak freely. They don't want them to travel freely. They don't want them to take a job of their choice, because they need the control and the power to stay in place. That's what it boils down to, regardless of the type of government they have. So it continues to be our job, and I'll keep doing it as long as you will. It continues to be our job to make sure we keep the pressure on every single government that is afraid of its own people. That's what this boils down to. Vietnamese communists are afraid. Journalists, They're afraid of the religious. They're afraid of the trade unionists. They're afraid of the journalists. They're afraid of people who speak freely. So we must keep that pressure that they know we're watching. So I will leave you with this thought, that it is worth fighting. It is worth fighting all of these. And for the entire international world, so that people can live free. Don't have to worry just about where their next meal is coming from, but be able to speak to their neighbors the way they want to, be able to worship in the way they want to. These are important things in a human's life. And we're here to uphold that ideal. We will continue to do so. And this meeting, I have the honor would like to invite you back on the stage. Thank you, ma'am. Also, I would like to call on the family of Dr. Thế Tuấn Anh and the daughter Quân Nguyễn. Please come up on the stage. We would like to present some appreciation.
Mấy ông ấy đứng hết trên này.
Now, every day is Vietnam Human Rights Day Month.
Thank you. I'm honored to receive this recognition plaque on behalf of my father-in-law, Dr. Wang. First and foremost, I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to former Congresswoman Leslie Burke. Her visionary leadership and commitment to human rights led to the authoring of the H.R. 133 resolution, which culminated in the Public Law 103-258. This law not only commemorates Vietnam Human Rights Day, but also serves as a beacon of hope and a reminder of the ongoing struggle for human rights across the globe. I'm also grateful to the Vietnam Human Rights Day May 11th organization. Your unwavering dedication to raising awareness and advocating for human rights is nothing short of inspiring. I would like to specifically acknowledge Mr. Hung Phan, Chairman of the Board of Directors, for his strategic guidance in the nation. Mr. Ung Man Hui, Chairman of the Organizing Committee. Your tireless efforts in coordinating our activities have been crucial to our success. And Mr. Kevin Phan, President of the Vietnamese American Committee of Maryland, Virginia, and D.C. Your leadership and commitment have significantly contributed to our community's strength and cohesion. Each of you has played a pivotal role in not only today's recognition, but in the broader fight for justice and human rights. This award is a reflection of your collective spirit and dedication. Let us pledge to continue our fight for a free and democratic Vietnam. Thank you.
So, Deputy Foreign Minister, if you work with us.
this very important event, 30th anniversary of Human Rights Day of Vietnam. I don't want to repeat how much important it is to commemorate Human Rights Day, especially in the wake of deteriorating condition of human rights, not only in Vietnam, but also in other countries, including my country. I'm from Burma, Myanmar. And we share it with Vietnam the same in Southeast Asia and the contemporary history of big neighboring countries. But we are always optimistic about the development of the situation of democratic rights as well as human rights back in our country while we are promoting them from afar. In that case, we also share our hope and future for better society with a better standard of human rights. Taking this opportunity, I would like to highlight the deteriorating situation of human rights in our country because of the military coup about 3 years ago. In the previous session of the Human Rights Council, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights said, quote, "Human rights situation in Myanmar has morphed into a never-ending nightmare away from the spotlight of global politics. 3 years of military rule have inflicted and continue to inflict unbearable levels of suffering and cruelty on people in Myanmar. 3 years of military operations designed to repress, terrify, dehumanize, and destroy. The subversion of the people's right freely to elect their civilian leaders, crackdowns on all forms of opposition and dissent, total abuse of power and impunity. Development goes into free fall. Conflict proliferates. The human toll is mounting." Unquote. According to the Human Rights Myanmar, more than 4,600 people, including women and children, have been killed at the hands of the military since the military coup. The military used airstrikes that attributed hundreds of lives of civilians, including women and children. More than 20,000 opponents of the military are arrested and in detention, including members of parliament and members of the elected government. Systemic torture is used against political detainees in police stations, military interrogation centers, and in prisons. Over 85,000 homes were burned down or destroyed by military forces. Very recently, about 3 years ago, a military force killed 32 civilians in the upper part of our country in cold blood, in daylight, without any reason. Almost 19 million people, which is more than 1/3 of total population in our country, need urgent humanitarian assistance. About half of population is below the poverty line, and 2.8 million people, which is about 5% of the total population of our country, are internally displaced because of the military operations. More than 1 million Rohingya people are still in the refugee camps in Bangladesh, refugee camps in Bangladesh. This is a human rights and humanitarian situation
international community. Small countries like Vietnam, Myanmar also deserve international attention and proper assistance for promoting and protecting human rights in our countries. I believe today's important events that would attract international and as well as the United States attention about what's going on at the other side of the global village. Thank you very much.
Please welcome our next speaker, Ms. Fei Fang, President of the Radio Free Asia, a private non-profit media company funded by the U.S. Congress through a grant by Broadcasting Board of Governors. RFA act as a free press in countries without indigenous free press.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm Dave Fong, President and CEO of Radio Free Asia. I'm really honored to be here today among this esteemed group of lawmakers, human rights activists, U.S. government officials, and representatives from the Vietnamese American community. I thank the organizers for making RFA a part of this special annual event. I also want to thank the many members of Congress who are present today, who are among RFA supporters here on Capitol Hill. Press freedom is a human right, one that's intrinsic to a healthy global society. But as we're witnessing around the world, this is not a guarantee. That's especially true in Vietnam, where the ruling party continues to target independent media and degrade the public's individual liberties. This year, Reporters Without Borders ranked Vietnam among the 10 most restricted media environments in the world. As of today, 35 journalists and bloggers are jailed in Vietnam. Recently, we welcomed the long-awaited release of RFA blogger Nguyen Van Hoa from prison after he completed his 7-year term in January. Hoa worked for RFA as a videographer, documenting protests and demonstrations under house arrest. We can only hope that authorities will leave him to continue his work freely. But 3 RFA contributors remain behind bars. Nguyen Thom Toi, who's serving a sentence of 11 years. He continues to suffer numerous health issues with limited access to proper health care. Tuong Nguyen Nhat, who's serving a sentence of 10 years. According to his friend, Nhat has been forced to work 8 hours a day under grueling conditions. And Nguyen Lan Tam, who's serving a sentence of 6 years. According to his wife, he's being psychologically abused and has experienced frequent harassment from other inmates. And only 2 months ago, yet another longtime RFA blogger, Nguyen Vu Minh, was arrested in Hanoi and is currently awaiting trial. These individuals are among the growing list of journalists worldwide who are targeted by authoritarian regimes in an effort to squelch free speech. Their treatment is unjust and unwarranted. But the Vietnamese regime's efforts have not stopped us from fulfilling our vital work. This past year, our Vietnamese produced breaking and exclusive reporting on such stories as the hundreds of Vietnamese nationals trafficked and forced to work at cyber scamming sites in Myanmar, which included some victims who had reached out to RFA directly for help, and the ongoing arbitrary arrest of political dissidents and activists amid the regime's internet crackdown. Most recently, RFA Vietnamese published an in-depth report on the arduous journey of Vietnamese asylum seekers crossing the U.S. border through Mexico in search of a better life. These stories and many others are what make RFA's work and independent journalism more widely so vital. For all those putting their own freedoms on the line to empower countless readers with timely news, we owe them more than gratitude. As we celebrate Vietnam Human Rights Day, we must ensure they're able to safely and freely continue their essential work. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And like I said, fighting for democracy and freedom for Vietnam is happening around the world where the Vietnamese reside. So follow this, we have a special like represented from Mr. Howie Till is speaking on behalf of California Assembly President.
Good morning. It's my honor to be here. My name is Howie Till, and I am here to represent the Office of California State Assemblyman Treaty and advise him on issues concerning human rights in Vietnam. Assemblyman Treaty entered politics when he was elected to the City of Westminster Council in 2006. A couple of years later, he was elected as the first Vietnamese American mayor in the United States. As a small business owner, Assemblyman Tar pursued American dream and raised his family in Westminster, where he continues to live today. He represents the 17th Assembly District, with about 25% Vietnamese, is home to the largest Vietnamese community outside of Vietnam. This day, 30 years ago, the United States Congress sent a message to communist government in Vietnam that basic respect for human rights must be adhered to. And in California last year, Assemblyman Tar passed Assembly confirmed Resolution 45 with unanimous support to reiterate California's commitment to human rights in Vietnam. May 11 is the day that we recognize that more must be done, and that we call on government to use every tool at its disposal to ensure that basic human rights are respected in Vietnam. Vietnam is a member of Human Rights Council. They cannot say that they have a different definition from human rights than the rest of the world. Those back in Vietnam, that include 19 journalists in prison for their work in Vietnam, according to the Committee to Protect Journalists. They cannot enjoy the freedom that we often take for granted in the United States, like political protest, due process in judicial system, or a freedom of the press. As we celebrate the freedom in the United States, we certainly recognize that in Vietnam, the reality is much different. I will end by saying that in California, we will continuously support for the struggle for Vietnam to raise their voice for human rights. Assemblyman Tar is proud to represent the Vietnamese American community in Little Saigon and proud to be steadfast champion for human rights around the world. Thank you. This is the ARC 45 last week. The Assemblyman Tar Center Committee.
Thank you to our delegate from California. Next remarks from prominent leaders for human rights. Our Commissioner Stephen Schneck, Commissioner of the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom, USCIRF, Catholic advocate in public life for social justice, and retired academic political philosopher. Please welcome
you may know, USERF is an independent, bipartisan federal commission created 25 years ago by the International Religious Freedom Act of 1998. Our mandate is to monitor religious freedom abroad using international standards. It's to make policy recommendations to the United States President, Secretary of State, and to Congress. Each year, USERF publishes an annual report assessing religious freedom conditions in countries that we determine to be among the worst violators on the globe. Since 2002, USERF has recommended Vietnam's designation as a country of particular concern, or CBC, or worst category, and to be included, and will be included again in that category, and it was included again in that category in the most recent annual report released earlier this month. We make this recommendation because USERF remains concerned that systematic, ongoing, and egregious violations of religious freedom persist in the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. The Vietnamese government continues to persecute independent and unregistered religious groups, including Hmong and Montagnard Christians, Cao Dai followers, United Buddhists, Wu Hao Buddhists, Bear Krom Buddhists, and many other groups. Ethno-religious minorities such as the Hmong and Montagnard in Vietnam's northern and central highlands and the Khmer Krom in the Mekong Delta are especially vulnerable to persecution for their religious practice. Throughout 2023, authorities continue to harass, detain, physically abuse, and force Hmong and Montagnard Christians, Hmong followers of the Zum Van Min, and others to renounce their faith. Authorities pressure independent Hmong and Montagnard Christians to join state-controlled religious organizations, such as the Evangelical Church of Vietnam South. The Vietnamese government also uses detention and imprisonment to control and intimidate religious communities throughout the country. USERF documents these and other abuses in their online database, the Frank R. Wolf Freedom of Religion or Belief Victims List. And in this database, we currently identify 81 victims of religious persecution in Vietnam. The Vietnamese government uses its legal system as a pretext to restrict religious freedom, not to safeguard it. Its restrictive law on belief in religion imposes burdensome and complicated registration requirements on all religious groups. This year, the government also released Decree 95 to implement this law, causing concerns that this new decree will expand what we see as an ongoing pattern of violations of religious freedom. While the United States and Vietnam have enjoyed a growing bilateral relationship in recent decades, this bilateral relationship is jeopardized when the Vietnamese government does not respect religious freedom. USERF therefore will continue to urge the U.S. government to prioritize religious freedom in its foreign policy toward Vietnam. Religious freedom and other human rights must be key components of any bilateral relationship with the United States. In closing, let me again thank our civil society partners for organizing this wonderful event. I'm deeply grateful for the inspiring work of these organizations, for all that they do to support the cause of religious freedom in Vietnam. And I join all of you in looking forward to a day when all Vietnamese citizens can worship freely, safely, and without fear.
Good afternoon. I do my best to hold the sun in order to have a chance to say the good morning, but not. So sorry about that. So I wanted to say good afternoon. What you delivered, your message wonderful. Share a lot of work, a lot of concern, a lot of love, and a lot of effort to maintain the human rights, especially the religious freedom for all people around the world, especially about those countries have no fundamental freedom, especially religious freedom. So I wanted to get back to my time. I'm so happy to share with you the message of the Unified Christian Church of Vietnam. I'm the representative. Dear honored guests, this year, the Unified Christian Church of Vietnam is 60-year-old. UBCV in the last 50 years has matured and suffering along with the Vietnamese people. The UBCV today is an independent religious organization under a total dictatorship under brutal suppression. The Unified Christian Church of Vietnam is still the voice of the Vietnamese people who believe in the Buddha's teaching and tradition, and in the goal of the serving the Dharma Buddha's teaching. The people, the UBCV is about the human rights. It's not even about the Vietnamese people. It's actually about us Americans. You will hear more and more communist authorities to complete the development of the database project on the Vietnamese people abroad, to have 100% of the areas with the large Vietnamese communities abroad, establish associations and unions, and to take advantage of the resources of the overseas Vietnamese to fight against laws and actions of the controlling community. So the Vietnamese authorities want to have a database of us, including of me and of our temples goers. They want to have their own religious associations to control our religious community, and they want to fight the exercise of our rights as U.S. citizens. So, if I say something about the lack of religious freedom in Vietnam, I will be forgotten for suppression using the same reason that they have used to put several hundreds of people in jail in Vietnam. They even have plans to set up police stations here in this country to stop me from teaching and speaking out. For too long, and for many of us, we have looked the other way because of convenience. In many humble opinions, it's no longer convenient to look the other way. If we are complacent, we may lose the same rights and freedoms that we have given up everything for. If we want to protect our freedom of religion and our human rights, we must have the people of Vietnam to have religious freedom and human rights. Thank you very much for your attention.
Our next speaker is Ms. Karina Lipsman, Director of the Government Relations for the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation. And she leads the VOC engagement in the U.S. federal and state policymakers, embassy, and advocacy initiatives with the human rights allies and captive nations constituencies. Please welcome Ms. Lipsman.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much to the organizers, thank you to the advisors, and thank you to all of you for being here today on this very special day. My name is Karina Lipsman. I'm the Director of Government Relations for the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation. We're a nonpartisan nonprofit based here in Washington, D.C. And I'm truly honored to stand here for you as not only an advocate for human rights, but a staunch opponent of totalitarianism in all its forms. But as someone who has experienced the wickedness of communism firsthand. I was born and raised in Soviet Union. I have experienced what it's like to feel oppression, what it's like to feel that you don't belong, what it's like to feel fear, and being taught the propaganda, and the constant state of fearing what your neighbors would do if you practiced bullying, if you said the wrong thing. So as I remember feeling gratitude when I was sworn in as a naturalized citizen of the United States, something that I knew that I was fortunate to have that opportunity that many around the world can only dream of, because this is the greatest country we have. The voices of millions of victims to this tarnished ideology must never be forgotten. And you here right now are a testament to that unyielding commitment in Vietnam and everywhere. Despite Vietnam's rapid economic growth and its role as a production and trade ally for our country, make no mistake, it remains governed by authoritarian one-party state. The Communist Party holds absolute control over the government, social institutions, and media within the country. Far too long, people of Vietnam have endured the stifling grip of a single-party communist regime that has systemically suppressed dissident and curtailed basic freedoms. Unfortunately, as the country opens more to tourism, the government has continued its crackdown on freedom of expression, association, and peaceful assembly. No doubt you are aware of a leaked Politburo document titled Directive 24 from last year. The document laid out plans to increase media censorship and surveillance and squash civil society like those gathered here today. Make no mistake, don't let the Louis Vuittons and the Apple stores fool you. Vietnam is a closed, repressive, communist country. You are here today as a reminder that the fight for democracy is not confined to any one nation or person, but it is a universal struggle that unites us all in common humanity. Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation stands with the people of Vietnam in their pursuit of democracy and justice. And I would be remiss if I did not invite you all to come visit the museum, which is off McPherson Square, 2 blocks from the White House. Thank you so much.
Next we have Ms. Anh Tu Vong. She's the manager of research and advocacy for the PIN Barley Freedom to Right Americans work in Southeast Asia.
exercise their cultural rights. In the past 5 years, our research has documented an increasing number of jailed writers in Vietnam. In 2019, we documented 10 Vietnamese imprisoned writers. By 2023, the number had surged to 19, putting Vietnam third globally in imprisoning writers. These numbers are in addition to the 150 journalists and human rights defenders that are imprisoned in Vietnam. One of these imprisoned writers includes this year's Ken Barbie Freedom to Write honoree, prominent activist and writer Nam Dong Chan, who has been unjustly sentenced to 9 years in prison and charged with anti-state propaganda for her writings. A significant subset of those detained are online commentators like Chan, who expresses views on topics such as human rights, democracy, corruption, and other issues. The Vietnamese authorities have continued to arrest, charge, and imprison writers and other dissidents' voices for making critical statements against the government, under the guise of violating various legislation such as the 2015 Penal Code, cybersecurity law, and decrees. These cases are often accompanied by violations of due process and fair trial rights, and have undermined access to justice. The Vietnamese government imposes lengthy prison sentences and denies inmates of adequate medical treatment, as exemplified by the case of Nam Dong Chan. Authorities further intimidate and silence writers and artists through travel bans, equipment confiscation, and detention based on artistic work. Traditional avenues of expression, including press, television, radio, and other publications, are government controlled, making social media platforms like Facebook important spaces for expression. The Vietnamese laws that require global data storage and data handover jeopardizes writers' free expression by expanding the state's capacity for surveillance and censorship online. Dissenting voices face harassment by pro-government digital militias Post 47 and E47, known for doxing and mass reporting on platforms like Facebook and YouTube. Upholding free expression and human rights in Vietnam is imperative for shaping a future rooted in freedom, dignity, and equality, with writers, journalists, artists, and creatives serving as essential catalysts for imagining a better world and fostering solidarity across communities. That is why today we urge the U.S. government to urge the Vietnamese government to stop persecuting writers, journalists, artists, and activists like Nam Dong Chan for exercising their free expression. Release them from prison and unconditionally drop all charges. Pressure authorities to provide access to legal counsel and medical care pending their release. And lastly, pass the Vietnam Human Rights Act, H.R. 3172, in the House of Representatives, and introduce and pass the Senate mandate. Thank you so much.
A very special guest, the Honorable Congressman Chris Smith. Champion of local human rights, Congressman Smith is a senior member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. He is the author of the Vietnam Human Rights Act, which has been passed 3 times in the House.
This is so important that we remember and celebrate Vietnam Human Rights Day, the 30th anniversary. It's a tremendous milestone, especially in the face of what is happening on the ground in Vietnam as we meet. As was just mentioned, I introduced the Vietnam Human Rights Act repeatedly. It's passed the House 3 separate times, and the 4th time we passed it as an amendment. Each and every time they got over to the Senate and they put a hold on it. And they defeated it. We have tried to get the administration to support it this year, and they are not in favor of it. And I think that's very, very troubling, especially since they're playing some kind of, in the old days they used to call it the China card, remember that? Now they're playing this Vietnam card somehow as if Vietnam is a buffer or some kind of counterweight to the People's Republic of China. Just for for the sake of argument, I do chair the China Commission. It's bicameral, includes matter of fact, Piero Tassi, our chief of staff there, and we have hearings, and we focus on the human rights abuses being committed daily by the Chinese Communist Party. But unfortunately, the same thing is happening by the Vietnamese Communist Party. They have an awful record of religious persecution. We have argued repeatedly that the country of particular concern designation needs to be reestablished and reimposed on Vietnam, and the administration will not do it. I remember when it did happen. We had CPC status, because of pervasive violations of religious freedom. I traveled there. I met with pastors. I met with Venerable Taekwondo, and many others, all of whom said how bad it was then. Well, the Bush administration at the time took the view that, okay, if we get a bilateral trade agreement, they've made all of these, quote, deliverables when it comes to human rights. Let's just lift it and see what happens. Well, we lifted it, never went back, and they've done nothing. Matter of fact, the day when the bilateral trade agreement was agreed to, the day, the Foreign Ministry put out a statement saying there's no linkage to human rights. That's a matter of sovereignty on our part, and you don't tell us what to do. Well, these are universally recognized human rights. We need to speak out. We need to speak out strongly. I'm planning a hearing in June on Vietnamese human rights abuses. It'll be, I think, a very good hearing. We're trying to get our bill out of the House Committee on Foreign Affairs. I'm happy to say it's a bipartisan bill. Zoe Lofgren, Michelle Steele, and Lou Carrera are all co-sponsors. We all collectively, as you know, are co-chairs of the Vietnam Caucus. And we are trying very hard to make sure that, especially this latter part of this Congress, we get this bill on the floor and we set up, hopefully, for the Senate, maybe this time, to agree. Thank you for all of your great work. Dr. Tom was also here. Back when the comprehensive plan of action was and Clinton was looking to get rid of it. He said, that's it, we're going to close it down. We're still 40,000 people that were in places like High Island, in Hong Kong, and elsewhere. So I chaired 4 hearings and said, of those 40,000 people, how many are true refugees? Because they have been all told that they're economic migrants, they're not true refugees. So I had 4 hearings, and we proved that Dr. Tom proved beyond any reasonable doubt that they had missed true refugees by the thousands, that they need to be reinterviewed to ensure that true refugees, well-founded fear of persecution, they can find safe haven in the United States. So I offered an amendment on the floor, was bitterly contested by a number of people, including David Obey and others, who was then chairman of the Appropriations Committee. They said, oh, they got repatriation monitors. Anybody who was sent back has this repatriation monitor who comes and checks out to see how it's going. So I did a hearing on that. They had him testify. And frankly, he said, I asked him directly, what happens when the interview is done with the person who was forcibly repatriated? And I said, and who is with that person, that repatriation monitor? He said, the secret police. I said, who in their right mind is going to say, I'm suffering negative consequences, having been forcibly sent back, when you got the secret police standing right there, and when the repatriation monitor leaves, there were about 7 of them at the time in the whole country, you have helped to pay for that. Re-education zones, all that was just awful. And we did an amendment, and it led to the establishment of Rover, and 20,000 of the 40,000 were re-interviewed and brought to the United States as refugees here in this country. So, we got to fight this stuff. We got to fight the severe argumentation that is made all the time. It's being made by this administration, and I find it appalling. I'm tired of people looking at human rights like it's an asterisk on the paper. Oh yeah, human rights, here we talk about that now. And then they go a little cursory conversation about it, and there's nothing linked to trade, or in the case of country of particular concern. If they get the CPC designation, we can sanction them. And we have to sanction them. I remember John, his last time, our ambassador was at the time of the Bush, he met my office and said, look at all these deliverables we have to Vietnam and religious freedom. I said, well, wait till they do them and then give them the training period. No, we'll get it all. We got none of it. So again, if you're going to be naive and just close your eyes, who suffers? The people of Vietnam suffer. They're great people. We need to stand in solidarity with them. And again, we'll be doing a hearing on human rights abuses in Vietnam in June. And we're all welcome. And we're going to do everything we can to shine the bright light and expose the terrible misdeeds being committed every day by the Vietnamese Communist Party, just like in China. Thank you.
In gratitude for your unwavering support of the Vietnam Human Rights Day, May 11th, we have a plaque for you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith.
Excuse me, sir.
Thank you so much. Our next speaker is another longtime supporter, Mr. Charles Goolsbee, Director of the Broadcasting Board of Governor, Director of the Office Editorial, U.S. Agent Global Media.
The Voice of America is the largest U.S. radio, television, internet, social media, 48 languages. Established in 1943, Vietnamese is one of the VOA's oldest language services. Provides 2.5 hours of television programming. Service maintains a popular YouTube channel and contributes over 20 million views, 1.6 million subscribers. Facebook, VOA Vietnamese is 1.5 million followers. Vietnamese outside of the service provides the Vietnamese audience accurate about views and comments right. All media. VOA was chartered by Congress to reliable and authoritative source of accurate information. It also presents a comprehensive and balanced picture of the American institution, gives audience an understanding of U.S. government actions and policies, promotes responsible expression of opinion and policy. One way VOA presents the U.S. policies is daily editorials written for radio or broadcast, video spots, and over the internet, produced by my colleagues and myself at the U.S. Global Media's Office of Editorials. These editorials are clearly identified as such to distinguish the news introduced with the Declaration of Editorial Respect for the United States government. An ever-growing global audience will work diligently to fill a vital role in U.S. public diplomacy. During the past year, our editorials have focused on a number of issues in U.S.-Vietnam relations. Human rights has been a major topic. For example, an editorial released for broadcast by VOA Services in September of last year entitled Historic Engagement with Vietnam. President Joe Biden said that human rights in Vietnam is a priority for my administration and the American people. Later that month, another prominent environmental activist citizen in Vietnam was released to peace by VOA Services. April 9th of this year, crackdown on ethnic and religious freedom advocates in Vietnam was released to broadcast. This editorial told the tragic story of numerous Christian and Buddhist clergy and believers sentenced to prison for practicing their faith. The editorial called on behalf of the United States government for their release.
Vietnam Human Rights Day 2024 was released on May 9th, or used by the citizens on May 11th. It gives an overview of human rights abuses in Vietnam and calls on Vietnamese authorities to release all prisoners of conscience and respect basic human rights of the Vietnamese. Over the years, the United States Office of Global Media, Office of Editorials has received many expressions of thanks from Vietnamese human rights activists, presentations, U.S. policy carried on VOA. Perhaps the most meaningful to us comes from Dr. Nguyen Hue, whose 1990 call for Vietnam's human rights, Vietnam's government to respect basic human rights. So much inspired this and he wrote, thanks to VOA, people know about the international community's support for human rights, democracy, and true freedom. SAGM's Office of Editorials takes very seriously our responsibility to tell America's story to the world, present U.S. policy, as well as bring a message of hope and support from the United States government to those struggling against oppression, Vietnam, and around the world.
Is our distinguished guest. This person, to me and to many people in say my generation, he just like my big brother. We share a lot of same values, same foundation. And with that, I would like to introduce retired U.S. Navy Captain Hong Kar, who is the Republican nominee for the U.S. Senate in the state of Virginia, retired as captain, dedicated 25 years in Navy special operation with multiple operational and combat deployments. Please welcome Mr. Hong Kar.
He's a little premature. I won't be the Republican nominee until a month from now. But thank you so much for your vote of confidence. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for having me here today. We're here talking about independence, freedom, democracy, civil rights. But let's talk about the true root of the problem. It's communism. Communism is the scourge of the earth. Communism is what destroys countries and lives. Communism is what hates God. Communism is what took away my maternal grandfather, my dad's dad. In the middle of the night, at the age of 13, he had to become the man of the house to take care of his family because of communism. Communism is what took away my maternal grandfather, my mom's dad, who was the magistrate of the city of Hue, and was taken away and was never seen again. Communism is the root of all problems right now. If we get rid of communism, we will bring independence, freedom, democracy, civil rights to the world. The problem is, communism hides by many faces and many names, much like the devil. They go by Marxism, socialism, and today they call themselves equity. Communism is the problem of the world. And the only fight against that, the only bastion of hope in the world is the United States of America. But the problem is they've also infiltrated here. So as a veteran of the United States Navy, I came here and I grabbed onto the American dream and I fought for this country for 25 years in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Somalia. But when I looked around and I saw what happened to our country, I knew what was happening right underneath our noses. So one of the things I do in the military is I do threat assessments. I see where the enemy would come in. So if I was the enemy, what would I do? If I was the enemy and I wanted to attack America, I would weaken her first from within. I would sow seeds of discontent and discord so effectively that I wouldn't need a sneak attack in the middle of the night or paraglide into a concert. I would distract and confuse so even the most logical actions to protect the nation are labeled as racist or hateful. If I was the enemy, I would use emotion and headlines to manipulate the narrative. If I was the enemy, I would turn educators against parents and vice versa. If I was the enemy, I would corrupt their language and threaten their livelihood if they spoke out against culture. If I was the enemy, I would normalize crime. If I was the enemy, I would weaken our military and make national pride akin to fascism. If I was the enemy, I would use war in other parts of the world to force spending abroad instead of ensuring a safe haven at home. If I was the enemy, I would exploit a weak economy to continue supply chain issues, increasing our reliance on foreign entities in manufacturing medication. If I was the enemy, I would use the last 3 years to cause confusion and chaos in Washington. If I was the enemy, I would sow division so deep we no longer recognize right from wrong. And then I would strike. I would hit at your largest cities. And I would turn the young youth against their parents. But the problem is, I would come to places where immigrants from communism, people who escaped communism, congregate. Because we recognize this problem. And we will fight back. Because here, we know what freedom is like and what the price of freedom is. Because here, we are Americans. And we will not stand up to communism. That is the scourge of the earth. This is why I'm running for U.S. Senate. Because I've seen this infiltrate our country. And I will not allow it to happen. Ladies and gentlemen, we are proud Americans. Stand up against communism. Thank you so much.
In Vietnamese history, we have very famous two sisters. So the next question to me and to many people in our room is just like one of the descendants of the two sisters. I would like to introduce Miss Lin Nguyen. She is an attorney and an advocate for the advancement of religious freedom and human rights in Asia. Ms. Nguyen served as a counsel for the Vietnam Tribunal. She served as alternate counsel for the Uyghur Tribunal chaired by Sir Geoffrey Nice. The tribunal concluded that the government of the People's Republic of China had committed genocide against the Uyghur people. So, my honor to introduce my big sister, Miss Lin Nguyen.
Thank you, Enrique. I want to start with the illusion of peace without justice and human rights is tyranny. Justice, human rights are prerequisites to true peace. Today we mark the 76th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and commemorates more than 160 million people, lives lost at the rise of communism. We gather here today to commemorate the 30th May 11th Vietnam Human Rights Day as human rights defenders. We respectfully report to you regarding the decision 1334. The Vietnamese regime recently promulgated Decision 1334, titled Developing Resources of Vietnamese People Overseas to Serve the Country's Development. Coordinated by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we believe that this is a sinister attempt to infiltrate and influence the Vietnamese Americans with illegal and aligned deeds mimicking the CCP's secret police and transnational repression. Decision 1334 also interferes with the United States national security, expands Vietnamese Communist Party espionage effort, and extends the CCP stealings of intellectual properties and trade secrets. The decision unabashedly explained the policy of making the most of the resources of Vietnamese people abroad, and I oversees Vietnamese resources as an important resource that need to be taken advantage of. The Vietnamese authorities plan to complete the development of a database project on Vietnamese people abroad and will infringe on our privacy and likely will use for purposes of transnational repression. Under a one-party rule, Vietnam has no established independent civil society, are all state-run and part of the Fatherland Front. Thus, the decisions plan to build satellite communist and anti-democratic organizations and institutions here in the United States. These agencies, along with the proposed Vietnamese Cultural and Educational Center by the Ministry of Culture, Sport, and Tourism, will exert an aligned influence on our community where we can improve the effectiveness of propaganda and provide a ready network for espionage. Decision 1334 is an all-government and from all-party committees and authorities at all levels to conduct covert and public actions by Vietnam to influence our political sentiments and political discourse, as well as exploit our resources. This problem is taking new heights under the upgrade of diplomatic relations. Recognize the decision as a new situation. The Vietnam regime needs to respect the law of the United States and immediately put an end to this illegal foreign influence and transnational repression. Thank you.
Next, I would like to introduce Professor Sanyu. He has been a keen observer and China expert, particularly in human rights and religious freedom. He is the Vice President of Global Summit Tourism Center for Critiquing the CCP, founder of the Washington Forum and Asian Outreach Director of International Committee for Human Rights and Religious Freedom. Thank you.
Chairman Fan, respected leader of Vietnam and Asia, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very honored to be invited again to give a brief remark on behalf of Falun Gong, Washington, D.C. area. I want to commend Chairman Fan and the leaders to provide this platform of gathering for fighting for freedoms and the human rights of Vietnam, China, and the ethnic minority group. I have been a Falun Gong practitioner for 27 years. As you know, the human rights atrocity of tens of millions of Falun Gong have been continuing in Communist China for the past 25 years. CCP's crime includes more than 100 different types of torture methods, sexual abuses, long jail sentences, killings, and even forced organ harvesting. There are more than 80,000 reported cases of inhuman treatments that involve more than 81,000 of individual perpetrators of CCP, which we have recently submitted lists to the FBI and to other governments in the world. An UN report stated that Falun Gong prisoner of conscience amounts to 2/3, 65%, of victims of alleged torture in China. Authorities estimated about 500,000 Falun Gong practitioners were detained across China in the past. Several millions died from persecutions and organ harvesting. Millions of families got broken and faced with hardship. The persecution of Falun Gong is the largest and most brutal human rights atrocity in Chinese history of 5,000 years. The former Assistant Secretary of Democracy, Human Rights and Labor, Dr. Bob Destro, he said that the persecution of Falun Gong is an ongoing genocide committed by Chinese Communist Party. One of the highest crimes of CCP is to murder by demand of Falun Gong for their organs for sale. There have been more than 900 Chinese military and civilian hospitals and more than 90,000 surgeons across China conducting forced organ harvesting crime. Collectively, they perform on the average, more than 300 organ harvesting each and every day, more than 100,000 per year. This is a CCP orchestrated terroristic crimes and a genocide against humanity. I also want to share with you an encouraging news that in the past 20 years, there's massive grassroots movement in China called Tuidao movement, worthy of your attention, which means hundreds of millions of Chinese citizens failed to step up, say no to CCP, and choose to cut their tie with Communist Party and affiliations. The grassroots withdrawal from CCP continues to grow since 2004 to 100 million, 200 million, 300 million, 400 million in 2022. To today, 430 million courageous Chinese cut time on CCP, which is more than the population of our country here. And doing the example, yesterday there are 46,205 courageous Chinese withdrawal in public statements from CCP and affiliations. During these 3-hour events at the Congress, there will be about 6,000 courageous Chinese awaken to their conscience and quit CCP. The Tuidao movement frees free China into a new society without communism, and later will be a new Vietnam without VCP. CCP has locked down and the whole country and abused the people for COVID-19 pandemic in the past 4 years, which caused its economy to drop to the edge of bankruptcy and caused great frustrations and protests of Chinese people. So-called white paper revolutions of the youngsters, white hair revolution of old people, and lying down of the Chinese people. Tens of millions of Chinese died of pandemic and man-made secondary disasters. Not to mention about their large lack of freedoms, basic right, medicine, and food. CCP definitely does not have a harmonious society. Rather, constantly facing with its number one enemy, its own people, 1.3 billion people. China is like an overheated pressure cooker that can easily blow out soon. So in the past 25 years, Falun Gong in China and the free world have brought a very large scale of truth clarification against persecution, which reveals the deception, crimes, and the evil nature of CCP. Now, our efforts are understood much better by many more people in China and various government and people around the world. 25 years have past, but I'm going to still stand strong. But the perpetrator, CCP, are facing with major crisis and coming to collapse. We can now see very well the bright light at the end of the tunnel. So keep up with your good work. A new China without communism, a new Vietnam without communism, and a new world without communism won't be long. Thank you all.
Thank you for your hopeful words. And a fellow Vietnamese, Mr. Dan Minh Wright, a former prisoner of conscience and lawyer in Vietnam. He has defended cases. In 2018, he provided legal defense for rights advocate Lê Đình Long, as well as peaceful demonstrators arrested during the protests swept in Vietnam in June 2018. Please welcome Mr. Dan Minh Wright.
Ladies and gentlemen, kính thưa quý vị thập phương, I am a human rights lawyer. I'm from Vietnam. I was granted political asylum by the United States after learning that I was wanted in Vietnam. A few days ago, the Vietnamese government posted a wanted for me again. I show a lot of my guidance in those pictures. Them and me, we are victim and witness of the suppression of human rights by the Vietnam government. But I must say anything wrong about the current situation of human rights expression in Vietnam, because I believe you already have too much information about it. Before, I would like to share with you with just one thing which I believe will be effective in improving human rights in Vietnam. We know that Vietnam is looking to the United States government to have support many other economic and defense benefits to enhance Vietnam's position in the region. I think if the United States government treat the benefits with the request to change policy and laws to have improved human rights in Vietnam. Just one thing, review unfair request the Vietnam government to abolish Article 109, 160, 170, 180, and 331 of the Penal Code. Abolishing unjust law is also a measure to resolve the case of political prisoners, because if the law accusing them is annulled, they are no longer criminals, so it is natural to release them. I think require the Vietnam government to adjust policies and law before the United States provide economic and defense benefits. If not, then I fear that the benefits that the United States bring to Vietnam will only have strengthened the power of the Communist Party as well as strengthen the government determination to oppress the people of the country. Thank you.
Save the best for last, our sister community, the Tibet National Congress. Diki Pomasang is the General Secretary of the Tibetan National Congress of New York and New Jersey.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nikki. I'm General Secretary of Tibetan National Congress, New York, New Jersey. We came from New York all the way at 2 o'clock this morning. As we gather here today to commemorate the 30th Vietnam Human Rights Day, I stand before you as a Tibetan who has never had the privilege to call a country my own, a land scarred by brutalities of oppression. I extend my heartfelt gratitude to Mr. Wang Pen and U.S. representatives, venerables, and all those gathered in this assembly. In 1959, China seized control of my ancestral lands. Our homes were invaded, our monasteries desecrated, and our people were subjected to unspeakable atrocities, all under the guise of cultural revolution and development. But let us ask ourselves, was it truly for progress or merely a facade to tyranny? Today, the evils of our suffering persist under the iron grip of Xi Jinping's government, relentlessly pursuing the agenda of industrialization at the expense of Tibetan lives and heritage. The construction of Beijing's 13th power station, hydropower project on the Dichu, it is destruction in the name of progress. Furthermore, the cultural genocides perpetrated by Xi Jinping's regimes knows no bounds. The forcible separation over 1 million Tibetan children from their families result in most Tibetan students being coerced into boarding schools, either isolating them from their families and communities. Within these institutions, mentoring is emphasized, religious practices banned, and students are subjected to intense political indoctrination. This systematic strategy aims to erase Tibetan identity and cultivate loyalty to China, ultimately serving to suppress dissent against the CCP. The suppression of our religious practices and criminalization of displaying His Holiness the Dalai Lama's images only exacerbate our anguish. Over 160 Tibetans self-immolated in Tibet. Many of them were under 25. Each one a tragic testament to the egregious violation of human rights committed by the Chinese Communist Party. I stand here today not only as a voice for Tibet, but as a witness to the resilience of my people.
Please welcome Dr. Erika Silva Lander. She is the head of the North America International Institute of Democracy and Electoral Assistance, IDEA. She oversees the international IDA's outreach in the region, its engagement in the global democracy coalition, and its work in support of the Summit for Democracy. She is also the international IDA permanent observer in the United Nations, representing the international IDA at the UN General Assembly as a leading voice in
Thank you so much for inviting me to speak here today and allowing me to speak for I wanted in particular to thank David Tran and the Alliance for announcing this happen. For those of you who don't know, International IDEA, the organization that I represent, is an intergovernmental think-and-do organization founded in 1995 with 35 member states with a mandate to strengthen and advance democracy worldwide. We do this through knowledge, data production on democratic reforms, capacity building to democratic actors around the world, with a focus on new and emerging democracies, convening of stakeholders, and advocacy of democracy worldwide. We work across a number of different areas: democracy building, for example, electoral integrity, inclusive political participation and representation, democracy assessment, constitution building, climate change and democracy, and technology and democracy. And since 2022, we're proud to have the U.S. as a very engaged observer country in international IDEA. In 2021, the International IDEA and other democracy organizations convened the Global Democracy Coalition. It's a coalition that has now grown to more than 120 democracy organizations from around the world committed to advance and protect democracy globally. And the Alliance for Vietnam's Democracy is an active member and is also on the steering group of the GDC. This coalition was formed at a pivotal moment for democracy, a time when alliances and champions of democracy across sectors and countries are desperately needed. Democracy thrives in collaboration, and our coalition is dedicated to uniting organizations worldwide to build, protect, and advance democratic values. By enriching the Summits for Democracy and other global democracy fora with diverse voices from both civil society and other sectors, we are fostering a global movement that learns from and supports each other in advancing democracy worldwide. The Global Democracy Coalition is all the more important because, as you all know, in recent years we've seen a troubling trend: a steady erosion of democratic norms and institutions on a global scale. Reports from democracy organizations, including my own, all echo the same alarming message. Democracy, the very cornerstone of freedom and fairness, is under threat. We witness the weakening of institutions, restrictions on civil liberties, and increasing authoritarianism all around the world. These existential threats fuel distrust and lead some to turn to authoritarian alternatives. Yet, amidst these challenges, there remains a beacon of hope, a steadfast belief in the fundamental values and principles of democracy. Democracy is not static. It is a living, dynamic, and evolving system of governance, adaptable and resilient to those who stand against it. Yes, the setbacks are real, but so are the successes and progress achieved by democratic champions and institutions worldwide. It is in this spirit that the Global Democracy Coalition is embarking on a new advocacy campaign at the Copenhagen Democracy Summit as we speak. It's convened by a long-standing GDC partner, Champion Alliance of Democracies, in collaboration with our partner of the Madrid, who is coordinating the GDC campaign with us. And it's a campaign that seeks to shift the narratives around democracy from one of decline to one of resilience, hope, and empowerment. This campaign aims to champion and showcase the value of democracy and foster a sense of democratic optimism. Our mission is clear:
Third Summit for Democracy, which was held in March, and the United Nations Summit on the Future in September. Today, we launch this campaign with a focus on young people. Young people are the driving force behind the future of democracy, bringing fresh perspective, energy, and innovative solutions to the table. Their active participation is essential to building resilient, inclusive, and vibrant democracies that can adapt to the challenges of tomorrow. Yet, in democracies, youth are often disengaged in formal politics or shut out of the political realm altogether in authoritarian contexts. We must urgently address both of these challenges. So the objectives of this campaign are threefold. First, the campaign aims to challenge the prevailing negative discourse on democracy by highlighting its value and positive impact on all spheres of life and across different regional contexts. By showcasing successful cases, best practices, democratic innovations, we will demonstrate how democracy delivers for people worldwide. Second, the campaign emphasizes the universal nature of democratic values, while showcasing how democracy is understood, valued, and practiced in different ways around the world, adapting to different regional and cultural contexts while still upholding core universal democratic principles. Third, we will highlight the significance of active citizenship and democratic practices. By emphasizing the role of local individuals in collective action and shaping democratic outcomes, we seek to inspire a sense of responsibility, encourage greater engagement in democratic processes by young people. We will showcase the valuable work of democracy defenders, including activists, civil society organizations, election officials, judges, and other working to protect and promote democracy within democracy and those fighting for democracy inside or outside of authoritarian contexts. Throughout all of this year, we aim to engage the 120 plus organizations that are part of the Global Democracy Coalition in their respective networks, leveraging their energy, experiences, and partners to create a massive and collective positive chatter about democracy among youth all around the world. All of us gathered here today, the stakes could not be higher. Democracy's value lies not just in its principles, but in its practice, in how it improves lives, fosters justice, and builds stronger, more resilient societies. So let us move forward together, committed to defending and advancing democracy for the generations to come, starting here and now today. So please join us in celebrating democracy by engaging in this campaign with the hashtag #ThankYouDemocracy. I'd like to introduce a very dear friend and brother, Mr. Quan Thi Kha, Executive Director, founder of Viet2, Principal and teacher of Tam Long Vietnamese Language School, member of the Executive Board of the Republic of Vietnam Next Generation, member of the Steering Committee of the Alliance for Vietnam's Democracy.
I would like to begin my speech by sharing this. We hold this truth to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the United States Declaration of Independence. And later, Ho Chi Minh, in 1945, when they took over Vietnam, he copied that, modified, edited, put it in the so-called Independence of Vietnam. From that day on, the communists of Vietnam start to rule the country with lies after lies. And you see, every people, we have the basic right, the human right, when we still inside our law, we already have that right. And the human rights, nobody can take it away. Nobody can give that to us. Because the human rights, our rights. From that rights, we build up society. We build up today and the future. I would like to say a little bit in Vietnamese. Because this forum, we would like to advocate for the Vietnamese human rights in Vietnam. Kính thưa quý vị, đặc biệt là các bạn trẻ tại Việt Nam, nếu các bạn đang theo dõi chương trình ngày hôm nay, xin các bạn hãy hiểu rằng tự do, nhân quyền, dân quyền, tất cả của chúng ta, tất cả đều là thuộc về chúng ta. Không ai có thể lấy đi cái quyền đó từ các bạn. Không kẻ nào có thể ban phát quyền đó cho các bạn. Các bạn hãy nhìn lại lịch sử Việt Nam. Chúng tôi không muốn nói về cuộc chiến tranh đã xảy qua, thì các bạn có thể cho rằng chúng tôi có thành kiến. Các bạn hãy xem từ năm 1990, khi mà khối Xô Viết sụp đổ, để cứu vãn tình hình, thì giới cầm quyền tại Việt Nam đã phải nới lỏng sự cai trị, đã phải nới lỏng những cái quyền căn bản là người, chẳng hạn quyền sáng tác, chẳng hạn quyền tư hữu sản xuất. Tất cả các quyền đó bắt đầu được nhà cầm quyền cộng sản nới lỏng ra, thì các bạn thấy điều gì? Rất hiển nhiên, xã hội mà các bạn đang nghe cộng sản vô trương là đổi mới, là sang giàu, bởi vì những cái đổi mới đó, cái mà họ gọi là đổi mới, cái mà họ release, những cái thay đổi, những cái quyền đưa vào trở lại tay con người, thì con người mới phát triển được. Tuy nhiên, just like all other communists, they just try in many different ways to hold you as an animal. They control you. To the day or the time that they see dangerous for them to survive, so they have to do something. Same thing everywhere. We see that from Taipei, we see from Vietnam and all other countries, Hong Kong, we all see that. So don't be fooled. Các bạn đừng để bị lừa, các bạn đừng để bị mất đi các quyền đó để trở thành những con vật, những thứ bị điều khiển bởi nhà cầm quyền cộng sản. Human rights, civil rights, that's the basic foundation to build up the country. As the youth, you inherit the experience, the knowledge of the past. You are luckier because you don't have to pay for the price of those values. Các bạn trẻ, các bạn đang thừa hưởng những cái kiến thức, những cái kinh nghiệm của quá khứ mà thế hệ cha các bạn may mắn hơn là các bạn không phải đổ xương máu, các bạn không phải đổ những mất mát để mà lấy và hiểu được những cái giá trị đó. Those experience you should hold on to that, value that, open up your heart and your mind, study that, and you are lucky because you are the present. You can take technology. Bạn đang có cái may mắn bạn giữ được cái technology của ngày hôm nay để sử dụng với kiến thức của quá khứ làm gì? Chọn ra con đường đi đúng cho tương lai. You choose your own path to the better future for yourself and for the country and for people. Nobody else, no any political party, region can do that. And if those rights been taken away from you, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. The more you're afraid, if you not get over, you will be controlled forever. That's all. Thank you. Cảm ơn.
Everyone and organizer would like to have you all up in the Both are vital for our healthy democracy. So now we'd like to have a group picture. So if you would please all come stand with us. Yes, now we would like to invite all of our speakers and our participants and everyone that has supported us throughout the years. This is our 30th commemoration, and we'd like to have a group picture of everyone. Please come join us. Xin quý vị xin mời mọi quý vị đến để chụp hình chung kỷ niệm 30 năm của ngày nhân quyền Việt Nam.
Lên chụp hình. Lên chụp hình. Hả?
Đi lên hết. Để 10 năm sau người mấy đứa trẻ nó tới. Đi. Vậy mới thấy đông chứ không thôi ít người quá. Đúng, chị Loan lên đi nhìn cho đông thôi chụp biết quá đi. Chị lên rồi ông lên gì đó đi, ông đi kìa, đi dây cái chân bắp dây nè. Bên chụp hình đi.
Rồi. Dạ đúng rồi, tại vì mình còn quay mà. Chịu thôi.
Nói chưa.
Chụp sao hay quá.
Hold on. Chị đã xuống. Anh Phúc. Ok rồi, được đó. Rồi. Yeah.
Cái lịch.
Thầy xuống mà. Hà Long. Kéo ngồi xuống tí xíu rồi nó quay xong rồi.
Mẹ ông cao quá. Like him, man, he's big, man. He stand in front, I can't do nothing about it. Exactly, yes.
Pick up a bag from the... Thank you.
Chết rồi.
Chúng tôi có đồ ăn ở bên ngoài, xin quý vị đi nghe thì lấy một bình đồ ăn. Quý vị, chúng tôi mời ban tổ chức đứng lại để chào ban tổ chức. Quý vị nào trong
They did the same thing to me.
I got pictures.
I'll let them know. Send. Đi.
Chỉ chưa? Trên đi nằm rồi vậy.